Well, hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Following on from my viewing of The Exorcist, the video I made a few days ago, I felt it was only right that I resume my documentary watching by linking that video to this one. And so I have decided today to watch the Mark Kermode-led documentary, The Fear of God, 25 Years of The Exorcist, that was made in 1998, 25 years after the release of The Exorcist, and brings together William Friedkin, William Peter Blatty, Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn, stuntmen, production coordinators, assistant directors, anyone, the head of the BBFC at the time, anyone who was directly or indirectly involved with the production of The Exorcist, who had something to contribute to sort of the overall story of the making and release of The Exorcist. And this is definitely one of those films where the making of is almost, perhaps not quite, but short of being as fascinating as the film itself. Because The Exorcist was such a cultural touchstone, as I said in my Exorcist video, that it transcends being a horror, that it is a drama at its core that wants to discuss complicated and controversial themes and ideas. It means that, at the time it was trying to be more than just a horror film. It was, and so therefore the people involved treated it like more than just a splatter film or a body horror. It had those aspects to it, but that was not the core vision behind The Exorcist. And the nature of it is that transparently, the people involved all describe their experience as being as such, that they didn't want to be involved with just a standard horror. Weirdly, they throw Rosemary's Baby under the bus for some reason, and The Omen, which are two genuinely incredible horror films, but they are mentioned as two examples of films that they didn't want to make. Now, personally, I don't quite get that, because I think The Omen and Rosemary's Baby do have things to say, and they are subtle and complex. They're not quite given credit in this documentary, but I appreciate that what The Exorcist is trying to do is sort of a step even above that, that it's supposed to be about trauma and horrors that go beyond the supernatural to being more disturbing and intimate, and about the abuses suffered by a child and what that looks like in our world, and whether something is so horrifying that it cannot be of our world. And so therefore, of course you have Ellen Burstyn and Chris, the character, desperately going to priests out of desperation, because when science fails, she sort of turns to the only thing left. And I appreciate that, that it, of course, held in such great esteem for that aspect. And, of course, like many 1970s film productions, there are so many elements to it that are, I suppose, don't age so well, and people sort of tilt their heads and go, really? Both in terms of perhaps the way that William Friedkin was able to essentially dominate and control his production to the point where, some of the actions that he did would be considered abuse at this point in history, very much in an Alfred Hitchcock kind of way, where being the director and being this grand visionary and having this ambition meant that he got to do things like fire guns on set around cast and crew, which, considering recent events in TV production, obviously there is a certain amount of resonance with right now, but the idea that back then that was something he would just do as a matter of course, not even as part of the filming, just to stimulate reaction from actors, or I don't know, keep everyone on edge. Again, it shows how different a production was back then, and again, having followed documentaries about Hitchcock and Francis Ford Coppola, of course, talking about his experiences on Apocalypse Now and the fact that he invested so much and it cost him so much that he was in a very mentally delicate state when he was making the film. This is a time when filmmakers, there was that weird line between filmmaker and artist and madman, I suppose, where you kind of question, well, these people obviously created these great works, but there are many filmmakers who failed to, and you think, what did it cost them to make something that wasn't The Exorcist or Psycho or Apocalypse Now? And again, it does sort of, even sort of on a practicality level and a health and safety and a respecting the people you're working with level, you also bring up the question of, well, just because he is a visionary, does that mean he gets to act with impunity? That he, got to be, he got to slap an actor across the face. He created an environment where, both Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair were put into stunts that injured them, both respectively, and you do question, well, again, it's 1970s and there's not much we can do about it now, but you do look back and think, gosh, that was a very different time and attitude where it came to filmmaking and what is allowed, and again, what the necessity of one living out their vision at the expense of the people who they have a responsibility for. But it's difficult because I suppose it is that whole nature of results thing, and I feel very conflicted about it, because were this to happen now, I would absolutely say no, that is horrifying, and I would join the mass of people who would say no, that kind of activity on set should not be allowed. But The Exorcist exists now. It was made and he got the results, and it is that weird dichotomy where it's like, would we have gotten the same film had he not? But that's not an issue we have to deal with because it exists and it was made. And of course the strange culture around The Exorcist. Of course you've got the political relationship that the studio had with the church, and of course with the producers, and the fact that this was transgressive and challenging, and no one really knew what it was. And it's really interesting seeing the fact that they, from the point in which the script was optioned all the way to the point where they are screening it for test audiences, the fact that there was this very careful tightrope that was needing to be walked, otherwise the film would either not have been released at all. One producer saying he would elect, well, I think it was Friedkin who said that one of the producers, or Blatty, who said that one of the producers said he wanted to put it on a shelf and it never be released again. And you think, it was an incredibly difficult environment, that this film just snuck in through the gap where one wrong step and it could have been lost forever. It could have been shelved indefinitely. And of course there's also the other layer to it, the fact that of course this is one of those infamous films like The Exorcist and Poltergeist that are these cursed sets. Of course, as I've mentioned, the very problematic environment on set meant that maybe this was some of these things were less about curses and transgression against higher powers, and probably more to do with the fact that this is the same set where a guy is firing a gun on a daily basis. You think, well, no wonder accidents happened on set, no wonder cast members got severely injured. some of the deaths that happened, okay, were coincidental. You know, they were unfortunate, unrelated events, but I feel like it's what is it? Causality is not what is it? Producer wife. Causality is not.
What?
What's the saying? Causality. You know.
Correlation does not imply causation.
That's it. Correlation does not imply causation. So who knows? I mean, it's not. I mean, with nearly 50 years behind, and obviously, you know, considering the tragedy of the loss of people who did die during the production of Exorcist, there is something, you know, there is an atmosphere, the fact that there is this sort of myth of The Exorcist that goes beyond the film itself, and the curse of The Exorcist production gives it that extra layer of infamy in terms of film production, and I am one, and documentaries help stuff like this. Sort of, I like the mythology of filmmaking and the idea that, you know, there's as much lore behind the making of films as there is in the films themselves, and I think The Exorcist is a prime example where you want to delve into what happened and sort of the mystique of The Exorcist's existence as a film production. And of course, I've been a big follower of Mark Kermode for, I think I was thinking about it a few days ago, maybe about 15 years. And of course, the version of The Fear of God we watched opened with a introduction from more recently. I think it was 15 years after that, so it would be about 2013. You know, and of course Mark Kermode reflecting on the documentary, which itself is a reflecting process on The Exorcist, and there is that reaching back through history aspect, and the idea of the influence of a certain film on film culture and film analysis, and you know, and shaping filmmakers going forwards. And I don't know, there is this unspoken link, this transcendent link that connects all the way back, and I think those sorts of connections in filmmaking are fascinating. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment below, and share the video, because there's all help me in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to get notifications of when new videos are uploaded. Check out my back catalogue of over 250 videos, and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about TV shows and films, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.